Hi, my name is Maddie. I'm the host of Respect My Region's High Women podcast, where we talk to influential women in cannabis and music. On today's show, we have the pleasure of speaking with Timeka Drew. She's the founder of Biko Flower, a cannabis company that offers THC flower and pre-rolls. Today, we're going to discuss cannabis compliance, her nonprofit, equity and marketing in cannabis, and more. Timeka, how are you today?
I am doing great, Maddie. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And can you go and briefly introduce yourself for our audience?
Sure, my name is Timeka Drew. I am the founder and CEO of Biko Flower. Biko is a women-led, Black-owned brand. We are a family-owned and run brand based in Los Angeles.
That's awesome. And how did you get into cannabis?
Well, I am a long-time medical cannabis patient, so I am lucky enough to be one of the many people who can say cannabis saved my life. So, in the late '90s, early 2000s, I was really suffering with an autoimmune disorder disease called Crohn's disease. And after about 3, 4, 5 years of kind of doing every single thing my doctors told me to do, I decided that the only way to to really take charge of my health was to 100% move into cannabis medicine. So, kind of gave up all of the medicines that were not working to heal me at the time, and moved into a regimen of cannabis medicine to treat my illness. And that is actually the only thing that worked for me. So that enabled me to not only kind of become a productive member of society, but be able to become a mother and have a beautiful family as well. I am the mother of 4 children, and I can say cannabis really allowed me to do that.
That's awesome. And can you elaborate on how it's helped you raise your kids? Because I was gonna one of my questions in the future was I don't know if your cannabis consumption changed after having kids or how did it help?
Well, I can say this. I mean, for me, before I had kids, when I was still sick, I was very much told, you're actually not going to be able to have kids.
Mm.
The medicines that I was on at the time were too toxic for, my body to actually be able to go through a pregnancy. Not only that, it was pretty. It was definitely, I was told that I would not be able to hold on to all of my internal organs, so that they would actually have to probably remove pieces of my colon. So I would be
Wow.
undergoing surgeries throughout my life, and that would make it really impossible for me to also have a family. I would be too busy really taking care of myself. And so, for me, my journey to health and with the plant, one of the first things that I did, I think, upon hearing that, was kind of say, well, I really want to change my health around so that I am able to have kids, so that at least that's something that's put back on the table for me. And I think as a mom, with cannabis, it's really just a matter of making sure I keep that balance of being able to stay healthy. And now with the legal cannabis industry, we have so many amazing products that make it easier than ever to really have a lot of different ways that you can medicate, and different options, so that it's not always just that I have to smoke a joint, or that I have to consume a smokable to be able to continue to treat my symptoms.
Yeah, and I love that there's several options for several different types of people too, because I know sometimes what holds people back from even taking regular medicine is just the fact that it's an oral like a pill, and that may put a lot of people off. But for some people they need to take it that way, and there are certain options where they can get it in what are those called? They're like pills, but they're not like pills. Capsules and stuff like that. So it is really cool to see what kind of market there is for cannabis. What made you
Now
for
we
your
have
com
sublinguals. We have like the stuff that you can put under your tongue. We have the products that are like My High, which is my favorite kind of drink additive that just really doesn't have a flavor at all, but you can put it into your favorite juice or your water. So there are just, I could have never imagined so many ways to be able to medicate when I was first kind of relying on cannabis to make me healthy.
Yeah, and what made you decide to make pre-rolls specifically for your business?
I think that's a really great question. So, my first, uh, the first thing that I wanted to make was our kind of star product, which is our Juiceo diamonds. And as I said before, our brand is a family-owned brand, and my husband is actually of Korean heritage. So we wanted to have our first pre-roll named Juiceo to celebrate his Korean heritage, and it means "please pass me" in Korean. So that's like a really a perfect name. And I really wanted a pre-roll. So many pre-rolls on the market at the time were something that I relied on when I really didn't have a lot of time and I was really kind of under a lot of stress, or I was having a lot of symptoms. So perhaps, after a hard day, I only have a couple minutes. I don't have a long enough time to roll something, but I need something right away. I need relief. And a lot of the pre-rolls that I was choosing at the time were not giving me that relief because they were full of perhaps trim. They weren't full of kind of whole flower. And sometimes even the infused joints I found just were not strong enough to really give me the effect that I was looking for. So our very first kind of star pre-roll was this Juiceo Diamonds that is a THCA infused pre-roll. And that, when we were kind of doing the product research, the research and development for that, I found that this pre-roll with the THCA in it was kind of the first thing that I had tried that really got me actually high again.
Facts.
Something that I hadn't felt in years, being a medical patient for over 20 years. So I really wanted to be able to create a pre-roll that people like me, connoisseurs, people who had been smoking for a really long time, could know that they could rely on, so that they know, this is something that is cost effective, but also is potent and effective in terms of knowing that they're going to have that quality that they're looking for.
And especially having that background consuming medical cannabis for a long time, as well as just holding like a lot of different positions in life, has led you to be like the awesome cannabis business owner you are today. What would you say is like a job that helped you the most in the past to be where you are today?
That's a really good question. I mean, I've learned so much in every position I've held so far. I've taken on something new. It's really kind of added to the repertoire. I really started in the industry way back in the day, in the medical industry, in the legacy industry. And I mean, my very first job in cannabis was a bud tender, like so many people. And then right after that, I really opened the first doctor-patient referral service in Los Angeles. It was in West Hollywood at the time, out of Compassionate Caregivers, the Yellow House, which was on La Brea back in the early 2000s. And that really helped me learn a lot about kind of what we really need to do in the industry at the whole. At the time, it was the medical industry really connecting with doctors and teaching them about creating recommendations for patients, but also really understanding where patients were having trouble accessing the legal market at the time. And at that time, it was really doctors that were making recommendations were so expensive. So you might have to pay $1,000 to go see a doctor who could write you a cannabis recommendation. Whereas, if you were having cancer, if you were somebody like me who had been suffering from a debilitating disease for a really long time and, had all this debt around it, had been in and out of the hospital, you needed a doctor that was going to be willing to give you a discount, that was going to be willing to understand where you were at and be able to help you get to that cannabis medicine that was going to be able to help save your life, like it was for me. So it was really that advocacy, learning how to talk to people about the plant, helping normalize the plant in that kind of really early stages of medical industry. And taking those lessons into the now adult use industry, and also kind of just remembering that we're so new, even with adult use, that we're always kind of learning. Everybody's learning. So as much as people say they're experts or they're experienced, it's all kind of, we're building the bridge as we're walking on it. So it's really important to just for everyone to stay very open-minded and to keep that kind of learning mind nimble, because I think we all have a lot of kind of learning to continue to do to build this industry into the stable, flourishing industry we need it to be.
For sure. And we still have a long way to go even with like marketing per se. How do you feel knowing that like cannabis has helped you so much and we still like are, tiptoeing around cannabis in media? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, it makes it really hard, to be honest. Normalization is definitely something that we all have to work on, and for me, it's been a personal journey as well. I do have, as I mentioned, I have the 4 kids, and I have 2 kids who are in high school now. And cannabis, even being a part of the industry, was always something I kind of kept very quiet before launching a brand. And now, kind of even just dealing with the fact that I'm this Black woman, I have kids, I'm talking about cannabis consumption, about the cannabis industry, um, really, but feeling a responsibility to do that as well, because every single time one of us does that, we are letting people know that all different types of people make up this industry, all different types of people are consumers, and it's going to make it a little bit easier as we continue to push those doors down and kind of demand more equity and more access throughout the country.
Yeah, speaking of more equity, do you see a more equitable future for people of color in cannabis? Because I've seen like a few things being done in a couple states, where they're like offering, you know what I mean. I think with your situation, even too, you're one of the first people to to get accepted into the licensing, right? Something like that.
That's right. I do. I'm one of these top 200 licensees through the phase 3 round 1 of the Department of Cannabis Regulation Social Equity Retail Licensing Program. And I'll tell you, one of the things that's been the most exciting about what's been happening on the ground with social equity has really been, I think, to your point, obviously the laws aren't quite strong enough, right? We're not able to do enough with the regulations yet. However, every time the regulations have fallen short, every time there are problems, the people on the ground have really organized and they've demanded better. And so often um, they've gotten better by making those demands. And one example of that is the Los Angeles retail social equity process, where the Social Equity Owners and Workers Association leaders actually sued the city of Los Angeles and
Mm.
expanded the program, because that originally was 100 licensees and it expanded to 200 licensees. And because of that, I was able to obtain a retail license. Without that push from the people on the ground saying this actually wasn't as equitable of a process as what we wanted, and we're demanding a fix to this, and they got it. And so I think that showing that when the people get together and they organize and they make those demands and they hold um, the legislators and the people that are holding that power accountable, we can get those changes. And I think that community organizing is more important than ever when it comes to ensuring that states are setting up social equity programs correctly, and that we have enough corporations and enough organizations, enough investors that are able to empower those social equity licensees and applicants to be able to survive and thrive within the industry with that financial support and the operational support that's needed.
For sure. I think that's like super important that we create more opportunity for people of color and minorities to get up in this business, because it seems that there's a lot of MSOs and like a lot of, big businesses coming in really fast, especially in Florida. I've seen like so many huge, cannabis multi-state operators before I've seen, smaller cannabis operators in Florida. So, it's definitely important that people can get into this game because there's a huge barrier to entry, especially in the cannabis market, that I've learned. Just even getting like the funding outside of just like it being a cannabis business is hard to get funding for. You know what I mean? Let alone just
100%.
a loan for yourself. So it's just there definitely needs to be more, and I'm so excited to see like more and more like social equity campaigns being taken up all over the country. Um, what would you say, uh, encouraging or inspiring for Black women or just females going in this market as well?
Well, I would say just don't be afraid to take up space. Don't be afraid to, be a part of the industry in every single place you can. I think one of the challenges for women in particular, and Black women, is that a lot of people see us in very specific roles within the industry. So they might, see us as marketing mavens, or they might see us as, being able, or even if we're good at things, doing one thing, kind of pick your lane. Whereas we know that the most celebrated entrepreneurs who are white men within the space are never in one lane. You know, they are celebrated because they are doing so much, and they are, you know, have their hands in so many different areas. And this is a systemic problem, right? This is something that we not just in the can all over. However, it does impact cannabis entrepreneurs in a different way because, like you're saying, to your point, there's so little money as it is for cannabis businesses, and even less for cannabis businesses that are owned by women, and even less if those women are women of color. So, you know, the way that we need to make sure we're supporting underrepresented brands and business owners is to make sure that we are buying them, that we are supporting them with our dollars, with our follows on Instagram and on Facebook, lifting up their accomplishments and making sure that, you know, we don't allow for, you know, larger marketing campaigns with more money to kind of drown them out and erase them from the stage. And I think that more and more of us are beginning to form together and really collaborate and really form powerful alliances to ensure that that we're showing how we're stronger together and to be able to be competitive against some of these larger companies.
Yeah, for sure. And what have you been a business owner several times? Like, is this your? Because I've seen you also do nonprofit work as well. You're just like on fire out here.
Sure. So within the cannabis space, I'll outline exactly what I do within the cannabis space. And I've done a lot of things. You know, I'm an artist. You know, we live so many different iterations of our lives. So I feel like all of the things that I've done in my life have kind of led me to this moment in time. And so I'm perfectly prepared for exactly what we need to do right now in the industry. So I am a licensee. I am a Type 6 manufacturing license holder here in Los Angeles, at a manufacturing facility that I have with my partners, Telos Cannabis Group. And we produce all of Biko's products there in downtown LA. And that's attached to a distribution facility as well that's also run by my partner. So we're also distributed through a social equity license there as well. And I also own my retail location that will be opening very soon, and we'll be making
Oh,
some announcements about that. I used to be the VP of licensing and compliance for Ease, but I have recently parted ways with Ease and have accepted a really exciting new position with NUG as their chief growth officer. And you know, really answering one of the questions that you had before about really Black women in the space, I think it's really important that more Black women and more underrepresented people in general hold more positions within the C-suite and are doing more kind of driving of the strategy of business development and how cannabis companies are spending their money and the kind of values that are driving their business forward. And I think that we really have to be putting ourselves in those positions. We need to be advocating for ourselves to hold those positions. And I think that the companies that are going to be in the best positions to, you know, be successful moving forward are going to be those that are really diversifying their C-suites and are really able to benefit from the creative energy of, you know, people that don't look like what the majority of leadership in cannabis looks like right now.
for sure. Diverse voices, like especially in this community, is what's gonna make cannabis like pop and be differentiated from all of these other, you know what I mean, companies out here. I feel like because when you look at it like an MSO, there's like a typical look to it. You know what I mean? There's a typical vibe to it, but I feel like it doesn't have the same culture as like, you know, a smaller, more like intimate setting as well. But I wouldn't know because there's not that many, you know, in Florida. But I'm waiting to have like I'm waiting to just go to a smaller place. I think it just depends on like marketing too. Like how can smaller brands market in this, you know, very saturated market these days?
Well, and it's interesting talking about marketing because there are so many different regulations everywhere around marketing too. Every state has kind of different regulations. United States has different regulations than Canada as far as what brands can do. But I do think that the having more of a focus on experiential um, uh, marketing plays and having ways that your consumers can actually have less just like things that they can look at and listen to, and more kind of experiences that they can partake in. I think it's definitely a wave. And like I mentioned before as well, just really doing a little bit less competing all the time, because I think that the whole competitive energy in cannabis, while it can be fun to kind of be, posturing who has the best flower, who has this, who has that. I think because the industry is still so nascent, we can explore new and exciting marketing initiatives that other industries maybe, won't try, because they have their data sets and the things that are kind of driving them and what they know will work. Whereas here, we're still learning. It's all so new. So I would encourage brands to kind of think outside the box and do things that haven't been done before, explore kind of new ideas in marketing. And I think we are definitely an industry that can start kind of some new trends and have other industries learning from us as we forge forward.
For sure. And I think that the mushrooms market is definitely, or like the psychedelic market is definitely
Well,
one of those.
psychedelics, yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about psychedelics coming up in the industry as well?
I mean, I think it's just really exciting that everyone is kind of has this energy of the gray area. I really like people. I like it when people and kind of what they're doing and what they want are driving industry and driving regulations. And I think that's what we're seeing with psychedelics right now. We're seeing states understanding that there is such an incredible desire on the ground for legalization, and really having to talk about it because of that. And then people kind of starting to already spin up brands and products, knowing and waiting. It's just really exciting. It's really exciting energy, and it's really fun to think that we get to be some of the pioneers at the very beginning of all of this. So I'm very grateful that we get to be around for this moment to help shape it all.
Yeah, for real. It really is like you're a part of history in the sense that you've been around, supporting it from the very beginning of, some of the first like legislations, you were affected by to have your business. So it's pretty cool that, you can continue from this point and just have this legacy as, really being a starter in cannabis.
I could have never imagined, when I was just a little sick girl trying to scrape together her roaches and, advocate for some doctors to give some $50 recommendations. I could have never imagined that we would have such a robust legal industry happening already, and that I would be able to be, building brands, businesses, and, really helping drive forward different corporations in these areas of social equity and community reinvestment. It's been incredibly it's been an honor, to be honest, being right here in the beginning of it all.
What motivates you to sustain your movement, your momentum in the career that you're currently in the cannabis
Well,
industry?
I mean, part of it for me is definitely the representation. It's definitely wanting to continue to hold down the seat at the table and hold other seats ready for other women that look like me, other underrepresented folks who are waiting to come in and have a voice. And I really think that every single time somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, I saw you speaking at this event, and what you're doing is really inspiring," um, that to me is enough of a reason to continue to forge forward. A lot of what we've built with Biko was really to kind of show by example what it is we could build. So often people would hypothetically ask things like, "Well, does the industry really care about a Black woman-owned brand? There are just so many people who have brands. Is that really even something that we need in the industry?" So I did feel a responsibility to kind of say, well, I can certainly show you an example, and I can certainly, build something that I feel is beautiful and representative, and celebrates culture and community. But I know that that won't be the case forever. There will be more of us, and as we continue to grow, I think it's important that we continue to be available for each other, and to be here to kind of lift as we climb, which is something that one of my close friends is saying. Battling for access and representation, or that we continue to make that space to work together, and to really build together this industry that we want to see.
That's beautiful. How did you go about creating your dream team for Biko to build the brand?
Well, Biko is really a really small team, to be honest. We're really just kind of a couple folks cobbled together, kind of getting Biko out all the time. Um, what I really love to share with people about brand building is that people don't even realize enough that I am a licensee, and so that I am an owner of, but you don't need your own cannabis licenses to have a brand. So many brands actually don't hold any licenses or touch the plant whatsoever. It's all just kind of access to your supply chain, your partners who are actually the ones kind of taking your ideas and your IP and able to create those products for you, and then you have a royalty deal with them. So I think that a lot of times folks think that you actually do have to have a large team of people, and you have to have cannabis licenses, and you have to have a ton of money to be able to start a brand. And while if you do have those things, you will have a much easier time. You can certainly start much smaller than that, which is what we did with Biko. And we really wanted to be able to have prove out the concept of Biko before we started to actually raise money. So that is really where we are right now. We're still in our first kind of year of proof of concept stage, and now we'll begin raising here within the next couple months.
Oh, congratulations. That's very exciting.
Thank you.
Of course. And so who came up with the name Biko, and what does it mean?
So I came across the name Biko when I was really, so I'll kind of go back a little bit. So I think one of the things for me as a Black woman, and I'm a mixed woman, I'm of mixed heritage, coming up as an African American, I was in a very homogenous kind of white upbringing. I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana originally. I went to all Catholic schools, and I was really the only Black girl in any of my classes. And I always was kind of shamed as a child in some way by not knowing where I was from. It was always kind of, I really just got to be a descendant of slaves. I didn't really get to have a real cultural identity.
Gotcha.
So when I did my ancestry DNA and I found out that a majority of my African heritage is from Nigeria, I really wanted to celebrate that through my cannabis brand. So I was kind of looking through all different Nigerian language and like words, and kind of trying to find something that spoke to me and that I felt would be great to reflect kind of my heritage. And I came across the word Biko, which means please in the Igbo Nigerian language, but it also
Mm.
happens to be the last name of Steve Biko. And he's this amazing civil rights activist out of South Africa. So, I named the brand Biko for the word please, but the fact that it happens to be Steve Biko's last name, and that he's somebody that I very much look up to and respect, was kind of just like a double bonus for me, which is why we named the brand Biko.
I
And
love
so to
that.
me, kind of Biko meaning please, it's almost like the name being a spell or a prayer, kind of like, that we respect the fact that the plant is kind of like answering our plea for like, please heal me, please help me, please, because that's oftentimes what I was kind of asking for the plant to kind of gift me. So for me, cannabis answers all of my pleases.
I love that. Hell yeah. I love cannabis
Yes.
for what it can do for me too. And it's one of those things that's like hard too, because I used to be on antidepressants, and when I've like switched over to weed, I just found that had such a bigger difference in my happiness and overall like feeling, and I didn't feel like I had some of the same necessarily negative side effects that I did when I was doing the antidepressants. I think that all we can really do is keep like fighting for the plan, keep destigmatizing it so that, you know, more and more people can accept the pleases, you know, they can get their pleases you know, fixed for them as
Yes.
well. Because, you know what I mean? And what's cool about the cannabis industry too is that it's not a gate kept industry. You know, everybody's trying to make sure that, you know what I mean, you're getting the right information, or at least, you know, people are trying to. Like we're trying to make sure that people are informed about, you know, what they're putting in their bodies and how it can help you, and you know, just some of the ways that you can change your habits from consuming medication to a different one, and how it can change your life pretty much sometimes.
Absolutely. And really just, legalization, being able to come out of the shadows with it is incredibly empowering. I came out to Los Angeles going to law school, and at the time I was really, really suffering, and I ended up having to medically withdraw from law school because I was so sick. And that's actually when I went in to go work for the Yellow House, and I started Green Medicine Group and all of that. But one of the biggest factors for me was I was on my medical cannabis at the time, and I'm going to law school, and you can't medicate on campus because you've got, federal scholarships, you've got federal grants.
Mm.
So you can't get caught with that. So I'm sitting there, trying to take like hash oil pills. I'm trying to take, at the time they were really strong hash oil pills back in the day. And the dosing wasn't quite exact either. And you didn't
Mm.
know exactly, how it was going to hit you. So you're kind of crossing your fingers that you're not taking too much or too little. And then you're trying to eat these, the hard candies back in the day that just tasted like straight hash. I mean, they weren't delicious or anything. It was like you're sucking on hash. So, I'm trying to get through the days in these, hiding and making sure nobody knows, and really not being able to medicate to the point where I can be healthy. And so just now knowing and understanding that at least like people can be a little bit more forthright, or at least there are places that they can go out in the open and be able to medicate, and get their relief, that it's just so freeing. And I just can't wait until that's the case for everyone across the whole country.
Do you think that you'll include edibles in Biko's product lines as well in the future?
Well, we definitely have some really amazing collaborations coming out soon that I think we'll be able to offer some of our folks some amazing edibles from some of our favorite brands. So definitely stay tuned. But yes, we're definitely looking to offer some additional products to our consumers. We've been listening to what folks have been asking for, and taking feedback, and developing. Um, so yes, check back in. And I know that, I actually first met Respect My Region at Hall of Flowers in Santa Rosa last year. You guys were directly across from us. And so
Hey.
I look forward to checking it out, and maybe we'll have a little bit to be able to talk about there at Hall of Flowers as well. So anybody that comes and checks us out, be able to chat us up a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, for real. And I'm like hoping that I can go to one of these events in the future too, because I'm all the way in Florida, so we don't have much for cool conventions and cool cannabis things going on like that. So if there's somebody's
Yes,
gonna
you got to
start some stuff up,
come on out to Palm Springs in May.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
We
Like
can hang out.
I gotta catch a flight for real, for real. Like I
That's
even heard that
right.
standing outside, just even, you know, in the smoking section right outside, you'll even get like really good information as well, just from, you know, some of the big wigs over there.
Everybody's there. There are a lot of people that go and don't even go into Hall. They just go to the parties, especially in Palm Springs. So come on out, Maddie. You can come over to the Biko house,
Oh, for
hang out in the
sure.
hot tub. Open invitation.
I'm sorry, hot tub?
That's
Wait.
right.
So,
We just booked our Hall of Flowers house. Our COO Jake just he locked it in. So we're looking forward to some maxing and relaxing in Palm Springs.
oh yeah, that sounds like a great time. I was just talking
Yes.
about hot tubs the other day because I keep seeing them around. And I'm like, I live in the apartment, so I can't really do that. But if I could have an indoor hot tub situation,
I'm hot tub obsessed. Give me a hot tub and I'm happy. I don't even care. It can be like a hot day and
Right.
I'm still ready for the hot tub because then when you get out you're cool. So it's like,
Exactly.
it's never
Feels
too
so
hot for the hot
refreshed
tub.
too. So like
All the
nice. Like
every time.
imagine smoking a little joint and being in the hot tub. Just can't really think of a better situation on a weekend or something like that. Sounds really nice.
So let's go, Maddie. It sounds like you're booking your flight. We're gonna
I
be Palm
know.
Springs.
It's
We got the
already
Biko. Got
done.
the champagne, the Biko, the hot tub. We're gonna have a whole little like ladies vibe going on.
Hell yeah. Oh, I really do need to book this flight, man. You're making me. I need to. Cause it looks so fun too. Like I've seen so many like TikToks and just like about the event. It looks super professional and prestigious and just so informative. And there's
It's
probably like
so much fun. You meet everyone, all your favorite brands. You can talk to folks about building. Like just a really awesome time. And I'm actually Hall of Flowers is doing their equity grants just closed, so they offered equity scholarships this time around for the equity brands. I believe they did it last time around as well. So stay tuned to see who wins those awesome grants and who will be having their amazing social equity booths at the event in Palm Springs.
wow, that sounds so fun. Do you plan on staying in California for like ever or
Well, I won't say forever, but it is hard to think about leaving. I absolutely, although Florida is beautiful, you do have beautiful weather in Florida. But I always say, I am originally from Indiana and the weather is just night and day. So although I do love my Midwest home, I do. Every once in a while, there's definitely things I miss about home, but California, the sunshine, beautiful weather all the time, the people, being able to be in such a culturally diverse area in Southern California has just been amazing. Raising kids with just so many different cultures that we can expose them to is ideal. So I gotta say, I do love Southern California, and I can't see myself leaving anytime soon. But I like to keep possibilities open.
for sure? Do your kids like I'm sure they're inspired by you as a business owner and a badass, but are they also inspired to get into cannabis as well?
I don't think so yet. It's so funny with this generation. I feel like they're so, and I say this because I say this generation versus our generation, because for us, cannabis was still so, like, it was so explicit. It was so cool. The rappers were talking about it. It was like a big deal. I feel like for our kids, for my kids' generation, my oldest is 16, they don't see it in the same way. It's kind of like, it's less cool. It's not as big of a deal for sure. I think they know that I'm like an executive, and they think that's cool. That I'm like a powerful. They think I'm some powerful woman executive. So I do
Haha.
think they think
And you
that's
are.
cool. Um, but I do like. I feel like it is a little bit of normalization is happening for the fact that like they're not even that impressed at all that it's like their mom works in cannabis. So
Yeah, some
maybe
people
we're
are
getting
mad.
somewhere.
Yeah, some people are mad at the industry that, like the culture is changing, but at the same time, I think it breeds new opportunities for people and like, you know what I mean? I think that the destigmatization is only a good thing for businesses getting more opportunities and people that have really cared about the plant for a really long time actually getting to, do something legal that they're already really good at. Um, how do you,
Yes, and it takes all kinds in this industry. I think so often we have this fear factor in this industry, like it can only be so big, there can only be so many players in it. But I'm always saying, McDonald's isn't worried about the food truck on the corner selling hamburgers. Like they're just not worried about it. They understand, or the woman who has a catering business out of her house who's selling burgers that way. There's space and room for everyone. And I think that the more, especially those of us who are, part of underrepresented groups, we definitely need to be trying to create more space for other people like us and not looking at other folks like their competition, even when it comes to, um, compliant versus non-compliant businesses now, licensed versus unlicensed businesses. I still think that we don't need to be in this mentality where as soon as we're holding license, all of a sudden we're anti anybody who doesn't hold one and we're trying to enforce. Like, that is not the mentality that we should be having, and it's certainly not the way that we need to be thinking to ensure the industry thrives. I think when it's cannabis, there is room. So I think that we should just kind of you know, tweak our mentalities about that a little bit.
For sure, because I definitely think there's a space for coming together and creating more of these convention like, events where, groups of either, it could be an all minority cannabis event, you know what I mean? And that itself is something that people are going to want to support and be along with too. So even people that you think are in your same niche, could really help be a symbiotic help everybody out thing. Because just because, you may see yourself as like we're both or black owned cannabis or what I mean, something like that. You could offer completely different, you know, products and have a completely different story and you know what I mean? And who says you can't support both businesses, right? It doesn't have to be one or the
Absolutely.
other.
Absolutely. And a really great example of that is this project that Biko was recently a part of called the Black Box Project. And it was a celebration during Black History Month where a bunch of Black brands in LA came together with Black retailers and created this box that was sold exclusively at Black retailers.
Mm.
And it was an example of, these folks who would typically be seen as in competition with each other, different retail stores who might be in the same area, who are Black owned, actually working in collaboration with each other to lift each other up and be supporting each other. And I think that we're seeing that across the country, and we're going to see more and more of it. And it's going to be the only way. It's going to be the only way that we can succeed. And I think it's really powerful if we could start building these alliances where we could know, okay, I'm a Black brand, I know that I can go into these other Black owned shops and that they're going to carry me. And not only that, I know that I can go into a Korean owned shop and they're going to carry me, or I can go into Mexican owned shop and they're going to carry me, because all of the shops of color have come together and we're all trying to support each other and support the brands and make sure that we have some safe spaces where we know that we can grow, and we have some shelves that we know are friendly shelves. So I think the more of us that are committed to coming together and building that kind of powerful community, we can definitely we can win that way, and we can start competing against some of these folks who definitely want to keep us off of their shelves. I think that we can be creating power by ensuring that there are places where we always have shelf space for underrepresented and brands of color.
For sure. And with the retail spaces in the future, I saw that you are in a bunch of retail spaces or have plans to be in a bunch of retail spaces. How did you go about
We
making those connections?
we're available in a bunch of retail spaces, thankfully, across the state. And we were really lucky. We didn't really hit our sales super hard, but we definitely hit our network of kind of aligned stores. And so I would say, if you're a new brand and you're trying to figure out how to create a sales pipeline, that's really the way to start. You find other business owners, retail operators, retail brands who are really in alignment with your values, the kind of community that you're building. And then when you can approach them and say, hey, I noticed that we have aligned values. Here's some information about our brand. This is where we felt we, fit together with your brand and the story that you're telling with your retail space. Those are places where we've been able to gain traction, and we've been able to create really wonderful relationships. For example, some of our retail partners that I think speak to this are Sweet Flower and Sava, who both are incredibly committed to lifting up underrepresented, queer, Black owned, women owned brands. And I think continuing to move forward, and even ease, having their social equity menu, having their women owned menu, having their Black owned menu, on their site has really been able to help drive sales. It's been able to help allow Biko to be recognized and obtained statewide, so that even people who perhaps were in San Diego were maybe only in one or two shops in San Diego and storefronts, but you can always get us on ease. And so I think that we have to have more and more friendly places and aligned retailers who are creating space for underrepresented brands. But also, as a brand, when you see that there are, retailers who are telling a story and who are building community that really speak to you and speak to your brand, reach out and speak to how that connected to you and your brand, and that's going to be a really wonderful, warm, kind of soft opening for you to be able to create a wonderful sales relationship.
Wow, you are very knowledgeable. I can see how you've started several businesses and are very successful. Can you share a little bit about your nonprofit as well, our academy? Can you tell us about that?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about our academy. I'm actually not really involved with our academy anymore, but
Mm.
we did found our academy at the beginning of the pandemic. Hillary, you and I, and Hillary had a media company called Our Dream, and I obviously was a social equity licensee and was beginning to build my brand, and was a cannabis industry executive building social equity programs. And so we kind of really came together with our skills, and then also my knowledge as a nonprofit organizer. I was a grassroots organizer. I was a national director of a national nonprofit for several years, and really wanted to build something that could be a resource during the pandemic for brands and individuals who are looking to get into the cannabis space, who were perhaps, going to some of these workshops and these in-person events that were happening before COVID, but that could now be a part of something virtual, so that they could continue to, grow their business and grow their education, even while we weren't having in-person events. Um, so we built this mentorship program and this really kind of pre-accelerator program for brands that brought together all kinds of brands and businesses and service providers in cannabis in this energy of grassroots organizing, which is really saying, all of the information and the resources to be able to build what we need to build are already here. It's just a matter of getting that information to the people. So if these, experienced business owners and brand owners and service providers will share some of their educational experiences through teach-ins and workshops, and will also commit to mentoring some of these brands and some of these, future licensees, and kind of connecting them to their network and continuing to have a long-standing relationship with them, that will really be able to help build their businesses as well. Because having a couple weeks where you're learning a lot of information, that's great, but really the way that you end up making deals, the way that you end up bringing in investments, the way that you end up finding your supply partners is through networks, is through people connecting you to those people. And so that mentorship portion of it was really, really important. And I think for me, and perhaps this is where the disconnect happened, but for me, it was really, really important to build a community and be really aware that in a community where you're helping an entrepreneur, specifically entrepreneurs who have been disproportionately impacted and negatively impacted by the war on drugs, you're dealing with people who have been traumatized by this war on drugs. You're helping people and supporting people who have come from generational poverty, like myself. And there are a lot of things that are attached to that, and we have to make sure that we have transparency, we have to make sure that we have accountability, and we have to make sure that we're treating people that they're part of an actual community, and not just a part of a business. And so I think for me, the energy between the co-founders became, we had business disagreements, and so
Mm.
it was no longer a community that I was allowed to participate in.
Hmm.
So, and I think a lot of nonprofits in the space, it can kind of turn into a lot of different things. I think that we definitely, no matter what, we definitely need more spaces where underrepresented entrepreneurs are given tools and given resources to thrive. So, anywhere that is creating that space is great. However, I do think that all of those spaces that are being created have to have accountability and transparency built into them. And that means that all the money that's raised, we should know how it's being spent. We shouldn't be erasing, people who have been, giving of themselves to help build communities. And, we need to make sure that, the way that we're walking forward is always one that, we can be proud of.
For sure. And education is super important, whether it be, being a business owner or a consumer. How what are the best resources for people to stay, educated on cannabis and the changing industry?
That's a really great question. I was thinking about this before our talk because I knew we were going to talk a little bit about kind of compliance and how people can think about approaching compliance when they have their own questions and they're trying to learn. And I think one of the things that people think is they think that some of this stuff is just so difficult that you always need a consultant or a lawyer or somebody to walk you through it. When in reality, a lot of this is very digestible for anyone. It's just a matter of being willing to kind of roll up your sleeves and do it. So I think that for anyone looking to learn more about compliance or be able to own a little bit more of what needs to happen around compliance for your business or your brand, don't feel afraid to get into those regulations, break them down, read them. I would say take sections at a time and just read small sections and go over them, and then talk to other compliance nerds like me. You'd be surprised at how many people reach out to me through LinkedIn and just kind of want to chat compliance, and I'm happy to do so. And that's some of the best ways to really learn and start to figure out where you might need the actual help from experts. And that's how I've learned a lot of what I know in the compliance realm. It's really just read. These regulations are constantly changing, so you want to constantly kind of stay on top of the changes, but also just like, I certainly don't have regulations memorized. I constantly, I know a lot of things from heart, but you're kind of constantly going back and you're constantly researching and rereading and reanalyzing, and also always don't be afraid to like reach out to the regulators and ask questions. That is what they are there for. And so often regulations are very gray, or they just don't cover a lot of the areas where we might have questions. And you know make sure you're reaching out, put that question in an email, and when they give it back to you in writing, you can take that almost as if it's law.
I love how LinkedIn specifically, and that's how we connected, but I love how LinkedIn opens these doors to talking to people and getting like this information that's like very valuable, and being able to just talk to people that have been in the spaces. And generally, like, cannabis people are very receptive and want to, help you out and talk to you, and I just love that about you guys. You guys are so awesome and just like ready to help. And that's like the kind of, you know what I mean, someone who wants to go into this industry, right? And I'm kind of in this industry where I'm a writer for it, but I haven't been like a bud tender, and I would love to do more like cannabis front facing work. But it's like it's super cool to have women, you know what I mean, doing it in the spaces like before you, and kind of giving you at least, an idol or someone to look up to, as like you've done it, it's obviously possible. But how did it feel, being a pioneer, having to do it when there wasn't a lot of people in your space?
Well, I just have to say, the women in this industry who have been holding me down as well are just amazing. And I definitely echo your sentiments that, this space is definitely one that is a pretty open. There's definitely a lot of people who are willing to kind of invite you in and help you. I definitely uh, for me, becoming an executive in the space was a path that a woman put me on. Lise Rossman is who hired me at Forefront Ventures. She was their chief growth officer at the time and hired me as their VP of engagement there to build their social equity licensing program. And so I do feel like, if that wasn't a woman, perhaps I would have been brought in at a lower level position to do that work. But I think that she felt that my experience and what I was actually going to be building for the company required for me to be brought into that area. And we need more and more of that. And I think that that's what we're seeing. We're seeing women being willing to bring women up in the ranks when it comes to, corporate cannabis. And so that means we need more and more women in the C-suite. We need more and more women as executives who are building teams so that we can see, and all the data supports, so many people. You hire folks who are like you hire folks that you feel comfortable with. And we know over and over again, that means that, if we have nothing but white men at the top, they're hiring other people that look like them. So, we just got to make sure that we're supporting each other and lifting up the women who have been good to us and continue to support us. Some of the most supportive women I have in my circle right now are some of the really powerful Asian American women in cannabis, who have really kind of brought me into their potluck club and have adopted me and have really been supporting me and as a person, as an individual, and everything that I'm doing with Biko. And I think that that's really important. Just kind of having a crew, having a group of people that you can always bounce ideas off of, and that, maybe if I want to get a little bit more information about marketing, I can go to some of my marketing gurus that I know. And then if they have questions about compliance, they can come to me. These things are incredibly important. And I think that it's as easy as going onto LinkedIn and starting to reach out to people who speak to you, who you feel are value aligned to you. Going to some of the parties that are thrown, going to some of these events and trying to rub elbows with some of the folks, and people are incredibly receptive. So I am incredibly grateful for all of the women in the space, and I look forward to continuing to kind of celebrate and build with all of them. And I think that, and I'm always open to as well. So if there's anyone who's watching this right now who would like to kind of connect with me and chat with me, and if there's any way I can help you, please feel free to reach out to me over LinkedIn, over Instagram, and let's connect, let's build.
Beautiful. And thank you so much for coming on and talking to me today. It's been wonderful talking to you. I feel like I've learned so much just about you and your business and compliance. So I really appreciate your time and your information.
I really appreciate you, Madi, and Respect My Region. Thank you so much for having us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Of course. And is there anything you want to shout out before we get going?
If you are not already following us on Instagram at Biko Flower, that would be amazing. You can also follow me at Timeka Drew, and I look forward to building with you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, my name is Maddie Forbes. This is Respect My Region's Higher Women podcast, and we are out. Thank you.